Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the very last panel of this forum, Iraq Energy Forum 2026. My name is Khoger. I'm a researcher at Middle East Research Institute. I'm delighted to be moderating a panel on this topic. And I hope that this panel will go beyond the technicalities that we have heard over the last sessions and inject some politics, diplomacy, and security into the discussion. And to do this, I'm delighted to have an excellent line of panelists, starting with Dr. Husham Alawi, Deputy Foreign Minister. Shukran jazeelan. Ahlan wa sahlan bik. And the European Ambassador, Ambassador Clements. Thank you very much for taking the time. And Ambassador Irfan Siddiq, the British Ambassador to Iraq. Welcome, sir. The format I have in mind for this session is as the following. I'm going to ask each of the panelists to take 3 to 5 minutes to give their opening remarks about the topic. And then we will engage in a round of discussions among ourselves and then open it up to the audience if time allows. So without further ado, Your Excellency, Dr. Husham, لك الكلمة.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Masakum Allah al-khair. Good afternoon to all of you. Let me begin by thanking IDP and all those that cooperated with them to organize this important conference in a very timely manner and situation. As you know, the energy sector in Iraq is the most important sector, and the successive Iraqi governments over the past 2 decades put in a lot of efforts and spent a lot of money and resources in order to develop this sector. When I talk about the energy sector, I mean oil, gas, electricity, as well as the use of renewable sources for energy production. Despite the positive developments that have happened in the past 2 decades, there are major challenges at all those levels, as well as important opportunities that we need to focus on when it comes to benefiting from the important strategic location that Iraq has, its geopolitics, the abundant natural resources that we have, and the need for more economic integration with our neighbors and beyond. I'm delighted to share this panel with my colleagues, the EU ambassador and the British ambassador. EU and UK, as you know, are important partners to us when it comes to, particularly when it comes to the energy sector. As far as the oil industry, oil sector is concerned, as you know, Iraq has been identified as one of the top 5 countries when it comes to proven oil reserve. The figures that we have available to us suggest that we have around 145 billion barrels of proven oil reserve. This might change, and it's likely to increase with the current activities, exploration activities. Iraq is currently the country number 2 when it comes to production export within OPEC. And there is a potential to increase our production rate. And those are some of the reasons why Iraq plays an important position in energy security. At the same time, we are currently relying heavily on the revenues we get from the export of oil. Nearly 90% of the annual budget is dependent on the revenues we get from the export of oil. For your interest, 70% or so of the Iraqi exported crude oil goes to Asian markets, China, India, South Korea mainly, and nearly 15% to European markets and another 15% to American markets. We need also to consider, in addition to the efforts that have been put in order to increase our production and export and open new markets, we need certainly to work on adding value to the crude oil by investing and attracting more investment in the petrochemical, in building refineries, in establishing joint projects with other countries outside the current importers of crude oil. And those areas provide excellent opportunities for business and investment. The second area which is important is the gas sector. Iraq, as you know, has also been identified as having significant reserves of natural gas. We have been working on addressing the challenge of the wastage of gas that is produced in the oil fields when we produce crude oil. In addition to the significant amount of money that is wasted because of this process, there is a domestic need. We certainly need to increase our gas production to provide enough gas for the electricity power stations that mainly use gas-fired turbines and reduce dependence on importing gas from outside Iraq. Potentially, this is likely to happen by the end of 2027 or 2028, and we might be in a situation, in a position to start also after that exporting gas to other countries in the region and beyond. And this is another important sector that provides great business and investment opportunities and economic cooperation with other countries in the region and beyond. The third sector is the electricity. As you know, in the past 2 decades, successive Iraqi governments have allocated billions of US dollars towards building a new power generations, but also towards addressing the challenges that we have when it comes to transportation and transmission of electricity. The total production has increased in the past 2 decades, but the demand is very big, and the rate of increase in annual increase in demand has been very high, quite often exceeding 15% annually. And this is why we continue to have major shortages in the electricity production. And in addition to diversifying our power generation and using renewable sources as well, we need to also consider the available opportunities to link up with other countries in the region, the Gulf Cooperation countries, Turkey, Jordan, and so on. And this will be in the interest of all countries in the region. The government certainly needs to also address the issue of collecting revenues from people, households, and industries that use electricity. Currently, we are spending at least 10 to 15 billion US dollars every year on electricity production, but we are not getting enough revenues from the users, and certainly the government has to address this issue. And there are opportunities here for private partnership with the private sector and business and investment opportunities for companies and in other countries. When it comes to finally the renewable, we are relatively behind when it comes to investing more on using renewable sources, particularly solar. And this is why the current government has been talking about new projects to increase the production of electricity from solar. There has been discussions, as you know, with major international companies, including Total, BP as well. And I certainly believe that this is an important priority for the new government. And again, it provides great business and investment opportunities. Finally, when we look at the Iraq important and strategic location within the region, and taking into account the very ambitious and important project, the development project, I think we certainly should think about energy using the development road to maximize Iraq's potential as far as energy security and cooperation in the energy sector is concerned. We should not just think about the development road in terms of trade and transportation. Telecommunication is important, but also the energy sector. Perhaps the relevant importance of the telecommunications and energy sectors as far as the development project is concerned are probably more compared to transportation and trade.
I'm sure. Thank you very much, Dr. Hisham. Very comprehensive. Talked about challenges, talked about perhaps opportunities, the need for diversification, issues relating to electricity, gas and oil. Ambassador Clements, what is your take on this? Please, 3 to 5 minutes.
Yes.
I want to stick to this time and open up to the audience later on if possible. Please.
It's very loud, the microphone. Well, thank you very much for inviting us. First of all, I must always say it's very reassuring to hear the Deputy Minister and the representatives of the Iraqi government to understand that they have a clear vision of where they want to bring this country. And we are partners in that respect, and I'm very grateful to hear that. I'm not an energy expert. I'm taking a broader look. Before coming up here, we were standing together with some of the students in the audience from the American University who are here assisting, who are now leaving. And I think what we actually talk about is their future. It's not our presence. Because the situation in Iraq is not about supplies. It is about energy resilience, connectivity, affordability, and regional integration. The system as it is now is not sustainable. This country has a tremendous population growth. In 2003, we had 20 million people, now 46 million, and we know that numbers will increase. The Iraqi budget is built on enormous percentage of oil revenue as income on a price level which is good at the moment, but we don't know where it will be in the future. We have a very high percentage of people working in the public sector who will receive pensions in the past, and so on and on. Is the answer to that pumping more oil? It may be for a transitional period, but it cannot be the long-term answer for this country. Also, for every liter of oil we're taking out of the ground, we need 3 liters of water. The more oil we produce, the more water we need. And this country has one thing not in abundance, it's water. And climate change will have even more dramatic effect. Iraq is among the 5 countries worldwide most affected by climate change. We already have high numbers of people displaced in this country due to climate change. The United Nations is speaking already of some 170,000 Iraqis who have to leave their homes because of climate change. So what is the answer? For us, the answer is not engaging in big oil production developments. We have the international majors, the oil majors, we have actors in that field, and it's good that they're there and that they help this country in using energy, oil resources more efficiently. But our aspect, our role, we see helping the Iraqi government and the Iraqi people in a secure transition from its dependence on oil and gas to renewable energies that will take developing the grid, that helps us. We're helping the Iraqi state in developing legislation to govern this field. There must be transparency. There must be financing available in a sustainable way. We're supporting the banking sector in this area to be ready and give financing for these kind of things. We're developing pilot projects to show how renewable energies and modern technology can be used to develop this vision for the young people, that they can be reassured the status quo as it is only a period in transition to a future which will not rely as heavily on oil as it is now. And the European Union is focusing on it. We're spending some 60 million euros just on supporting this energy transition, and we think that's very well invested money in this period, and I'm looking forward to our discussion how we can
Fantastic.
jointly do that.
Thank you very much. Bang on time. Ambassador Irfan, challenges, opportunities, problems, how do you see it, and what is the silver lining here?
Well, thank you very much as well to the organizers for the invitation and for this opportunity. I think my co-panelists have already covered a lot of the ground, so I'll be very brief. The first thing I think to say is that any energy transition requires investment. And to have investment, you need the resources. And one of the big challenges Iraq is facing is a potential financial and economic crisis coming ahead, because we've seen increasing expansion of state spending without an increase in new forms of revenue. And that's obviously going to be a massive challenge. So expansion in state employment, in state salaries, in pensions, is creating a huge burden on the economy, and there hasn't been the corresponding increase in revenue. No labor reform, no tax reform, no reform of all the social service payments. So I think that's a first step to create confidence that there's a solid economic base for any form of major transition. When we get to the transition itself, I think the Deputy Minister set out a lot of the core steps. A lot of progress has been made on gas flaring, accelerating that, looking at solar, looking at hydrogen, looking at going up the value chain in terms of oil and gas products. But the reality is that these are all big, ambitious projects, and in addition to the political will, there needs to be the investment climate for that. I think there are still some challenges around the investment climate. I think international companies who want to invest are interested, but they need to have the confidence that this is going to be a suitable environment. And so there's still some issues around economic reform to create that attractive investment environment. But there's also some fundamental challenges as well. We live in a very unstable region. We're seeing increasing risks to that stability now. I think when the new government comes in, we'll want to see that government tackle some of these challenges. Issues like state control of the use of force, some of the militias and their activities, they are direct risks for international investors, and dealing with them will create confidence for the stability of investment in these areas. And similarly, having confidence in the macroeconomic climate. So I think the prescription for how you move along the energy value chain and the energy transition is very clear and set out very clearly by the Deputy Minister. But having the political commitment and the appropriate environment to attract that investment. So for example, in the UK, we're really keen to be supportive. We've got fantastic financial markets, capital base to be able to provide that support. Companies that are experts in clean technology, they're all watching. They're not diving into the market because they're not getting those signals that really there is a really stable, attractive environment. And we've had companies who've put their toes in the market, and actually it's been very difficult and challenging. So we hope that with the new government, with a commitment to economic reform, to a commitment to progress along the issues related to stability, we'll see a more attractive environment that creates a conducive space for all of us to contribute to the energy transition that Iraq obviously needs.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. Dr. Usham, coming back to you. You talked about the need for moving beyond local and national to the regional level. But if you look at the region, it is now beset with many challenges, largely related to US relations with Iran, the Gaza issue, Syria rising to the scene. And then all of these affect Iraq. Do you think Iraq has the capacity to deal with all these and become a regional player to connect at that level?
Successive Iraqi governments have identified the importance of working with our neighbors and with the international community who share our vision about the importance of addressing some of the conflicts in the region and working together to strengthen regional stability. As you know, we have hosted the first Baghdad conference in Baghdad, 2021. We also organized, together with the support of our brothers in Jordan, the second Baghdad conference, and we were supposed to also organize the third Baghdad conference. And those conferences provided good platforms for countries in the region and beyond, including European countries and France in this particular instance, to work together towards strengthening regional stability and using dialogue and constructive diplomacy to address some of the issues you refer to. We have also played a positive role when it comes to, for example, addressing the differences between our brothers in Saudi Arabia and our eastern neighbor, Iran, that led to the agreement that was signed in China in 2023. We have also been, in various ways, trying to convey the message about the need to de-escalate and engage in diplomacy to address the nuclear issue of Iran. We certainly believe that it is not just in the interest of the US and Iran to reach an agreement, but it's in the interest of all the countries in the region and beyond to do so. We have been also engaging in various ways when it comes to securing the situation in Syria. Iraq, as you know, has negatively been affected by the conflict in Syria. We have also our national interest if we are to succeed in pushing for a stable, broadly inclusive government in Syria, avoiding any divisions or the rise of extremism and terrorism in Syria. We have been also proactive after hosting the Arab League Summit in May last year. Iraq is currently leading the Arab League and is also leading the Economic and Social Council of the Arab League. We used the opportunity to present several initiatives focusing on working together to end those conflicts and wars in the region, but also, more importantly, to create the right environment towards more economic integration between countries in the region and beyond. And as I said, the development road is a good example, and in order to succeed in implementing the project and benefiting from it, we certainly need to have the right secured environment in the region. Finally, when it comes to exporting oil, we have been, as you know, exploring opportunities to cooperate with other countries in the region to ensure that we have multiple options beyond the traditional route of the Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. We've been engaging with our brothers in Turkey. There has been discussions with Jordan and Egypt, with Saudi Arabia as well, and so on. And I think thinking in this broad way, working with other countries in the region, including the European countries, are important in order to realize our ambitious goals.
Hopefully those will translate into real action down the line. Ambassador Clements, coming back to you. Europe obviously has its own energy demands. And one of the sources for energy into Europe is Russia, which is with having an issue with Ukraine, the war there, and its implications on the energy market for Europe. And at the same time, you have your own regulations relating to transparency in terms of importation, transparency, other regulations that might limit your interaction. But I want you to think about and answer this question for me about how do you strike the balance between having your own needs and the limitations that it comes with it? What mechanisms are you following to meet your own demands of need, but also be cognizant of the limitations and the regulations that you have?
Well, thank you very much. I think you mentioned Europe and Russian gas supplies. I think this was one of the important lessons of the war in the Ukraine, that the overdependence on single sources can be risky. I think one of the lessons of the recent years has been that diversification of sources is very, very important as a form of gaining resilience against shocks that can come externally to our system. Another lesson, I think, is that we have to have much better integration in our own systems, meaning this is a reality in Europe now, that if one of the member states produces more electricity, for instance, it is transferred into other member states, which have maybe an undersupply for that moment. So the system is in equilibrium and it's supporting itself. And the more interconnection we have, the lower the risk that a system fails. It becomes complex, but there are different ways of assuring energy support and connection. That's what we do. I think the European Union has made it very clear that we are globally diversifying our sources, and that the Middle East remains one of the important partners in helping that strategy and that attempt to diversify. And I think the fact that Iraq wants to produce more gas and shift away from oil will also change the role of Iraq in the regional and global energy scene. And we have been very much welcoming, for instance, also the better relationship and the energy deal that was referring to oil, but there's potential in it, when Iraq uses Turkey as a gateway for energy supply to Europe. We think there's great potential in integrating Iraq regionally more. We're working with the GCC countries and have a Mediterranean pact, and we want to see that Iraq becomes a part of this, even though it's not bordering directly the Mediterranean, but in the broader sense, to be much more integrated. We support this because, as I said, the lesson from Europe is such kind of increased integration offers diversification and stability and makes our systems shock resistant against a dependence on one single source or one single partner. And I think we fully agree with Iraq on that attempt to have strengthened this regional integration.
Fantastic, thank you. Ambassador Irfan, in your opening remarks, you talked about the need for a political commitment to affect change and reform the system here. What specific reforms do you have in mind that could not only start the process, but also boost investor confidence to come in and invest in Iraq?
So firstly, I think there is a big issue about the macroeconomic challenges Iraq is facing and the confidence investors would have in the ability for projects to be financed. So up until now, Iraq's expenditure has just been increasing and its revenue base hasn't really been keeping pace. So I think there's going to need to be some shift in that balance to ensure sustainable approach to financing. We have been making lots of offers to finance projects through, for example, export credit agency financing, UK government financing. But even that has been difficult because of some of the bureaucratic and political challenges around that. related to big projects in infrastructure areas such as water and power. So I think we need to see a clearer commitment to the macroeconomic stability, the willingness to finance projects in a sustainable way, and to have the transparency and governance arrangements around that that will encourage international investors. And in addition to that, as I said, I think there are some risks around political stability in the region, which obviously have to be priced in, but there are also some risks to political stability within Iraq. And I think what we're seeing, to be frank, the topic of the day, the American statements around the formation of the next government, are related to this issue, the confidence that they will have around issues such as Iranian-aligned militias or Iranian influence in the economy, the dependence between Iran and Iraq in the energy sector being dealt with. I think there's all issues where confidence can be created through actions taken by the next government.
Fantastic. Thank you. Very clear. Dr. Hisham, recently the US alluded to imposing tariffs on any country working with Iran. I think it was set around 25%, but I think President Trump is always subject to changing the amount or the percentage. If that happens, Iraq is dealing with Iran. It imports gas to generate electricity. What should Iraq do, and how would Iraq maneuver around that issue, do you think?
As you know, lately we haven't been importing gas from Iran for the reasons that you mentioned. The Prime Minister has talked about this issue on several occasions. The Iraqi government has been working on multiple levels to reach independency and reduce dependency on importing gas from Iran. The first, obviously, level I refer to is to address the issue of flared gas and to minimize and increase production. We are currently told that we are likely to reach, we have reached nearly 70%, and we are likely to reach zero flared gas by the end of 2027. And that would significantly reduce the need for importing gas from Iran or other countries around the world. The second option has been to create the infrastructure down in the south, in the Iraqi ports, to import gas from other countries, including, for example, Qatar. And this is why we have been in discussion with our brothers in Qatar about this issue. The third option has been to import gas from Turkmenistan as an example of another country that we might get what we need in terms of gas from them. One of the challenges that faced us is the fact that it has to go through Iran
Right.
by land. So the government is trying to address this issue by using those multiple approaches. We feel optimistic that we will achieve our goal, but we need some time to work on realizing those goals. We are also, as I said, we are also hopeful that the current conflict between Iran and the US will be resolved, and both countries will reach an agreement that could have positive impact on not just the relations between the two countries, but on Iraq and the other countries in the region that could potentially be affected by the kind of escalation that we've seen last year.
Great. Let me stick with you for a little longer. Another regional country, Syria. There has been talks that extending a pipeline from Kirkuk or other areas in Iraq to Syria could be an option down the line. Is that still an option that could be done in the future? And if yes, what challenges do you see in implementing that? And the
I
BP
mean,
is supposed to be, I mean, I hear that BP is willing to do that, or...
Historically, as you know, it was thought of as an option. And this is one of the reasons why we are very much interested in seeing a stable and prosperous Syria. But if we take into account the recent developments and the current assessment, this doesn't seem to be a viable option in the short term. Hopefully, it will be in the medium to long term. And this is why, as I said, we've been exploring other options, including Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, as well as Turkey.
Great. Ambassador Clements, regional connectivity, integration. What political challenges do you think will hinder such an eventuality? What do you think will hinder Iraq becoming integrated into the region?
I think there's great potential. At the moment, I think we have to have a clear, transparent mechanism of cooperation. That's important, yeah. And the most important aspect is we need to have heavy investments in the grid. I think whenever we speak with investors or banks and energy companies, they tell us the grid is very, very much a limit to a lot of the development at the moment. But I think that Iraq has quite a potential in that, and the Deputy Minister outlined this with the neighborhood that is there, with Jordan, with Saudi Arabia, also Kuwait. We hope that the country can expand this network and really develop it, because I think alternatives and broadening the sphere is what this country, what it really needs. The hindrances, I think we've alluded to it, and my dear friend Irfan mentioned it as well. This has a lot to do with the inner organizational and investment limitations in this country, because if Iraq wants to connect with its neighbors, a lot of the reforms that this government has been trying to implement need to be continued and worked on. Otherwise, if there's not a transparency in the market mechanism here, a clear, the investment rules are clear and so forth, the interconnection cannot work. There must be shared risks between the neighbors. And in order to do that, you need a certain transparency in the markets on both sides. I think that's very important that we support in doing that.
Fantastic, thank you. Ambassador, if I'm coming back to you. During Prime Minister Soudani's visit to London, the UK has outlined a £12 billion package of trade and investment, dealing largely with infrastructure projects, water projects, power and communication. My question is, what determines whether such packages become transformational rather than transactional?
And the most important thing is implementing them.
Right.
So unfortunately, we're a year on from the agreements being signed, and probably from that 12 billion, we've only seen less than $500 million actually be completed, because there's an issue of financing on the Iraqi side, there's issues of bureaucracy, there's issues of political interference, there's issues of sort of administrative capacity. And so we're still waiting for the green light on many of these projects. For example, there are 2 large water projects in the south. We've started on a pilot phase, but we still don't have full commitment to move ahead into the delivery phase. We've had projects related to solar, to electricity interconnection with Saudi Arabia, still waiting for full sign-off. And this is what I meant about a real commitment from the Iraqi government and the investment and financial climate being suitable for it. The reality is that the financing of these projects is becoming more difficult because the Iraqi government is becoming a little bit more tight in its ability to fund these projects. So we would love to see these projects go ahead. We would love to see further projects developed, but there is limited financial and administrative, and sometimes it seems political capacity to absorb all of these and to deliver on them. And this is part of what will make the energy transition more challenging here, and why I think, hopefully with a new government in place, a clear budgetary commitment, and a clear commitment to energy transition, we will see more momentum and progress in this area.
Great, thank you. Dr. Hisham, to me, that answer raises a number of questions. And bottlenecks, problems, administrative issues, financial issues. What needs to be done here within Iraq to push it? It's been 1 year into the signing of the agreement in London, and little has been implemented.
Well, probably it's timely to talk about these issues as we are working on establishing a new government. Certainly, one of the priorities for the new government has to be improving governance and accountability and reducing bureaucracy and improving the level of coordination between the Prime Minister's office and the ministries and other institutions. We certainly also need to continue our efforts when it comes to improving the business environment in Iraq. Maybe relook at the relevant laws that govern those activities, including completing the process to approve the draft bill on public-private partnership that is currently there waiting for approval. I'm pretty sure that the new government will look at all those issues and will continue the efforts to address those, because they are, as Ambassador has said, they are affecting the implementation, the process of implementing whatever agreement we have with the UK and other countries, but also reducing the chances of succeeding in attracting more investment in developing not just the energy sector, but the other important sectors, including agricultural sector, the industrial sector, the tourism sector, as well as the financial services sector.
Fantastic. Okay, I'm going to open the floor for questions and answers. We've got 10 minutes. Please state your name and state your questions. No comments, please. Yes.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. How are you? Hope you all are doing good. It was a pleasure hearing your speech here at the IDP conference, Iraq Energy Platform. Conference, sorry. So I want to ask about your opinion in how Iraq have dealt with the urgent problems like electricity, oil, and water, definitely, especially that it's become more like a dilemma. You dig a oil field to extract oil, you spend water to maintain the machines that extract oil, to create electricity. So my question is, how have you saw Iraq deal with that dilemma for the past 5 years, and what is your vision for, or expectation actually, for the next 5 years, and how the central government of Baghdad have dealt with that? Sorry, I forget to represent myself. I'm Ahmed Raed, a student at the American University of Iraq, Baghdad, and I'm the first Iraqi student to done his internship at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
And who was your question to?
Anyone of the excellencies here.
Okay. Anyone
maybe all of them.
Can I, if I understood you correctly, can I ask my good friend Professor Adil Sharif, who's there watching, to maybe help us answer this question? He's currently also one of the advisors at the Prime Minister's office.
Okay.
Where is he?
What are the best options to address the water scarcity?
Okay. Yeah, I think, thank you very much, His Excellency. I think what we didn't talk about in the previous sessions is really the water issue in Iraq. The only way I see it visible and Iraq has the full control of it, is to use technologies. Technology we can buy, we can rely on. We don't have to, for example, wait for some other countries to consider. We have not to wait for the sky to be more generous. Role of technology going to address most of the water issues in Iraq. Of course, we have to have good management of the available water resources, but the role of technology going to play the major step. But additionally, technology is getting obviously cheaper and cheaper, more effective. Saudi Arabia and other Gulf countries, they don't have rivers, but we don't hear they have water problems. And they spend billions to get the infrastructure. Now, for a fraction of that cost, we can do the same in Iraq more effectively and cover all our needs.
Professor, you are referring to desalination?
Desalination in particular, water reuse, water recycling. I know there are a lot of options. We heard earlier about cloud seeding and try to, but obviously the most effective is tapping into the sea and tapping into the non-conventional resources.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
That was, yeah.
Gentleman over there. Excuse me? Where's the-
Thank you very much. Raed Jawad from Crescent Petroleum. So my question is to the EU ambassador. I'm just wondering how the EU justifies asking a country like Iraq with historically very low emissions per capita, with urgent development needs, to limit the use of its natural resources, to limit its development of natural resources, when Europe industrialized for decades and decades and decades, burning their natural resources, and a country such as Germany and many other member states still rely on hydrocarbon resources. Coal still plays a significant part of your energy mix. So I'm just wondering how you can justify this, and it seems to me like some sort of double standards, perhaps. Thank you.
To answer you, I think there's a misconception because we don't ask Iraq to limit anything. We're in a dialogue with the Iraqi government to transform its energy sources because the Iraqi government and population themselves have understood that this system as it is now is not sustainable. We cooperate on transforming in a very responsible way the energy use that is in this country. Nobody asks Iraq to limit its output. It's a misperception.
Okay, thank you. Another question?
My name is Hama Amin Hauramani. My background is electrical engineering, and I was advisor for the Ministry of Electricity in Kurdistan region for several years. So thank you for your nice speech. So the point which I want to make, the challenges in the energy sector, and namely in the electricity sector, it is non-sustainable tariff, which is as Dr. Hisham mentioned, in the electricity sector. Yesterday it is mentioned that it is exceeding 90%. So the country is spending yearly more than $10 billion just in the electricity sector. What are the revenues they are getting? It is nothing. Sometimes 7%, 8%, maximum is 10%. So we was in the same situation in Kurdistan region, but really we make a reforms. I am fighting for this more than 10, 12 years, but finally we gradually change the tariff, and now it is approach to the sustainable tariff. But we saw that we remove the diesel generators, which people is getting. So the people is not getting any benefits from these subsidies because they are paying for.
What is the question, please? Go to the question.
The question is it it is not one of the challenges which is nobody mentions, because all technical peoples and advisors recommended this several times, but it is political issue.
But I think Dr. Hisham touched upon this in his
Yes,
opening
of
comments
course,
later
this is
on.
Dr.
So
Hisham.
he did touch it.
I think he's just confirming the message I was conveying. I think we certainly need to have a strong government and a brave minister to force people to pay for the electricity they use, whether households or industrial, in the industrial sector.
Not only we are exporting gas.
It's clear, sir. Thank
LPG.
you. It's clear. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm going to take one last question and then conclude the session.
Good afternoon, Engineer Omar Mubdir. So my question is addressed to Dr. Hisham. I just want to hear from you, Dr. Hisham, your views. Maybe my question is a bit broad, but your views is in how the countries in our region has been using their natural resources, including water and oil, in squeezing some policies on the other countries in the region. Just like some perspectives from your side, maybe to hear you about.
Well, as you know, I was the ambassador of Iraq to Turkey, so I'll use the example of water diplomacy with Turkey since 2016, when I first went there to become the Iraqi ambassador. There are several bilateral agreements and MOUs between Iraq and Turkey, and also an agreement between Turkey and Syria when it comes to the Euphrates. As far as the Euphrates River is concerned, Turkey has agreed with Syria to provide a minimum of 500 cubic meter per second at the entry point into Syria. And Iraq and Syria have agreed that 58% of that would be Iraq's share and 42% Syria's share. In the past 3 decades or so, unfortunately, this has not been implemented fully. There has been some fluctuation in the volume of water resources that have been coming via Syria to Iraq at the entry point between Turkey and Syria, and between Syria and Iraq. When it comes to the Tigris, which is more important, we have the agreement from 1946, but more importantly, we have two agreements. One, an MOU that was initially agreed upon at the end of 2014, and then was ratified and finally approved by the Iraqi authorities and Turkish authorities in 2021. And there is a paragraph there confirming that Turkey will ensure a fair and equitable amount of water from the Tigris to Iraq. In the past 12 years or so, the two countries have not reached a final percentage or a figure. So my view is we need to have a similar arrangement to the one that Turkey had with Syria and Syria with Iraq. This is bilaterally between Iraq and Turkey. We have been negatively affected by the various projects that the Turkish government has implemented in the past 2 to 3 decades. The volume, the water resources, has gone down significantly by at least 40 to 50%. Last year, our water reserves were among the lowest in the past 40 years or so. So it is in the interest of Iraq to resolve this issue bilaterally with Turkey, and we either need to say that we will have a similar amount of water at the entry point, Fish Khabur, when it comes to the Tigris River, and we could combine that to reassure our brothers in Turkey. We could combine that with implementing various projects as has been agreed based on the agreement that was signed in 2024 and the executive mechanism that was signed in 2025. Agree on implementing projects that would improve water efficiency and develop our agricultural sector across Iraq. And that would be a win-win situation for Iraq and Turkey. Does that answer your question?
Okay, to a certain extent. Fantastic. With that, the session concludes. And I want to thank Ambassador Irfan for your time. Ambassador Clements, thank you very much. Dr. Hisham, thank you very much for your time. And thank you all.